I feel like I've lived at least 8 different lifetimes this year. Hello everybody, it's Katie here, and 2024 has finally come to an end. I can't decide whether this year has dragged on painfully slow or whether it's disappeared in the blink of an eye, because it somehow feels like both of those things simultaneously. So of course it is time to discuss all things bookish in 2024 and to just give you a bit of an overview of my year. 2024 has been such a mixed bag for me. It's been so up and down that I don't know how I've kept up with it. So I've had some really difficult things happen to me this year in my personal life. My mum started getting some really scary health issues in the summer. If you've seen my videos before, then you might know that my dad passed away a few years ago, and I am somebody who has generalized anxiety disorder. So when things like this happen, I'm not good. I do, as my therapist says, catastrophize things. So when things go wrong, they really go wrong. And it has taken so much of my energy and motivation to try and get through these past few months. It's the reason why I haven't been very active on here this year, and it has been a really difficult time. But on the other hand, this year I have made some of the most amazing memories, and I've had some experiences that I never thought possible. So genuinely, I have had a love-hate relationship with 2024. This year I got to see one of my best friends in the whole world for the first time since COVID happened. She surprised me with a visit to my city, and that was absolutely amazing. I also got to travel to London at the start of the year, which is always a big deal for me as an anxious person. But I went to go see one of my favourite actors in a play, and it was in this really tiny, adorable little theatre, and the table that I was sat on was actually part of the set, so I got to interact with the cast a little, and that was just so incredible. In the summer I got to go to the Heartstopper Pride event at Liverpool Pride. I was so happy when I found out that this was coming to my city. So I finally got to see Charlie Spring's bedroom, and I met Corey and Layla, and it was the most incredible day. They signed my copy of Heartstopper, so it is one of my most cherished possessions. Keeping in theme with Heartstopper, 2024 was the year that I finally got to meet Alice Oseman. It does not take a genius to figure out that I absolutely adore Alice Oseman. I have been a fan of their work for such a long time, and I adore Heartstopper so much, but it's their books that mean the absolute most to me. So back at the start of the year, I found out that Alice was doing a signing in my favourite queer bookshop. So I immediately got tickets, I got to travel to the city. They were able to sign my original copy of Solitaire that I've had for so long now. It's kind of half destroyed, and it's annotated, it's filled with tabs, and now it's signed, and it means so much. And of course I got I Was Born for This signed, which is my favourite book by Alice. And then I of course took with me this jacket that I painted a few years ago. I've been painting bookish jackets for a while now, and this one is definitely one of my favourites. And I always wear it to go to the bookshop that Alice was at, and the people who've worked there have spoken to me about it before. So the workers there helped make sure that I was able to get my jacket signed, because it was really busy on the day and quite hectic, but the workers helped me ask, and Alice was more than happy to sign it. So this jacket is now signed.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
And then one of the biggest things that happened to me this year happened at Liverpool Comic Con. So over the past year I finally started to go back to Comic Cons again. I used to do it all the time when I was younger, but then my anxiety got really bad and I got too anxious and stressed out to go. But last year I finally found myself in a place where I could attend them again. So I bought a ticket for the event in May, and after I bought the ticket, they only went and announced that they were getting Shadowhunters cast members. Those of you who've been around for a while will know that this channel basically exists because of Shadowhunters. It's how I started making videos in the first place, week after week defending that show. And I'd always see people go to conventions and meet the cast, and I'd be so jealous because I was like, well, that's never gonna happen for me. And then the people at Liverpool Comic Con just decided to make my dreams come true. So this May I got to meet Matthew Daddario and Dominic Sherwood. Matt is genuinely one of the nicest people I've ever met at a convention. He was so lovely. He really took the time to talk to everyone. So despite the fact that I was nervous as hell, he made me comfortable instantly. He complimented my Shadowhunter cosplay and the rune on my neck that I'd drawn, which he found very hilarious that I'd done in the mirror at 7 AM with an eyeliner pencil. And whilst I was chatting away to Matt, I had no idea that Dom, who was on the next table, was rolling up little paper balls and throwing them at us. And my sister managed to catch that on video and sent it to me afterwards. So of course I went to meet Dom immediately after as well, and he was also just the loveliest person. I got to have my first photo op at a convention because I've never actually done a photo op before, but you know, it was Matt, so I had to. They did have Alan Van Sprang as a guest as well, but I know he got sick on the first day of the convention, so on the second day, which is the one that I went to, he was ill in the morning when I was at the tables. So I didn't get to meet him, which is such a shame because I loved him as Valentine. But hopefully the cast had a great time and will consider coming back for more Comic Cons here. I really hope so. So yeah, that's just something that I cannot believe happened to me this year. And even more miraculously, I wasn't a complete mess. I was able to talk. I did not panic. I'm very proud of myself. So yeah, imagine telling 2016 booktube me that I was going to meet Matthew Daddario. Life goal complete. I feel like we've come full circle. So yeah, despite the fact that my year was a complete mess, I did get to make some amazing memories, and I'm so happy that I was able to do those things. A big year for me in terms of bookish accomplishments. So without further ado, let's get into my top books of 2024. I read a lot of great books this year. I've managed to hit my reading goal of 40 books, but I've narrowed it down to just 5 of them that were the best of the best. So in at number 5, we have Emily Wilde by Heather Fawcett. So my wonderful friend who came to visit me this year actually recommended these books to me because she just knew that it had the sort of vibe that I'd love. And then in the first book, throughout like the first half, I enjoyed it, but I didn't like love it. And then in the second half I was like, okay, now I get it. And by the end I really did love it, so I ended up buying the sequel. This one stepped up. It's not like the first book wasn't enjoyable, because it was, but this one was just a million times more amazing. I am so in love with these characters and this world. I'm so intrigued to find out what happens in the last book. It's genuinely such a cozy read as well. Like, it is fantasy, it's based around fairies, so there is another world, but it's not too complicated or dense to the point that you don't know what's going on. So yeah, for the character development in this one, the subtle relationship that builds, we all know that I love a slow burn, especially when they started out as academic rivals. Sign me up. It was just everything that I needed, really. So number 4 is Angels Before Man by Raphael Nicolas. There is no coming between me and a self-published queer novel that I see on Tumblr. I'm always going to pick them up. They get me every time. So yeah, I'd seen this one being discussed by both the All for the Game fandom and the Captive Prince fandom, and they are 2 of my favourite series. So obviously I was going to pick this up. It's a queer retelling of The Fall of Satan. Absolute banger concept already. Genuinely at first, I didn't know how I was enjoying the story and the writing style, but then I got to about a quarter of the way in, and then for some reason it just got me in a complete chokehold. Just the way it's told is just so gorgeous, but also exceptionally painful, especially because you know the fall is going to happen. Like, it's Lucifer, so you know what's coming, and just getting closer and closer to that moment, I was so stressed. But yeah, it was such a beautiful story, and I've bought the second book, so I can't wait to read it. This is why you should always go looking for hidden gems, because some of the best books that I've ever read have been self-published ones. I'm not saying all self-published books are incredible, because there's a lot out there that you've got to sift through, but genuinely there's some diamonds out there if you know where to look. and this is one of them. So it was exceptionally close between 2 and 3 this year, but I finally settled on number 3, and it is The Summer Queen by Rochelle Hassan. This series is my new obsession. I cannot tell you how many times I just want to scream from the rooftops that people need to pick up these books. So I came across the first book, which is The Buried and the Bound, in my favourite queer bookshop, and I just really fell in love with the cover art, and then I read the blurb and it sounded like something that I would vibe with, so I bought it. I had no idea that I was going to completely fall in love with these characters as much as I did. There's just so much in these books that tick all of the boxes I look for in a story. There's magic, there's a curse, there's childhood best friends to lovers who are pulled apart. Genuinely, I feel like 7 or 6 years ago, when I didn't have as many queer fantasy books as I do today, in my head I wanted a very specific type of queer fantasy, and I just never got it back then, and I feel like this series is what I was looking for. And even though it's all these years later, I'm still completely obsessed. So yeah, this is the second book in the trilogy, and it completely overtook my life this year. I can't tell you the agony I'm going through waiting for that last book. Please pick up these books. You won't regret it. So number 2, which would have been number 1 if it wasn't for a certain other book, is A Wild and Ruined Song by Ashley Shuttleworth. So over the past couple of years, I've become obsessed with the Dark and Hollow Star Saga by Ashley. I first came across it when I was looking for books with pansexual characters, and that one was recommended. So I ended up reading it, and again, this is very like the other book, in which it's something that I've been wanting for such a long time. This is an entire cast of queer characters in a fantasy series, and it's just everything to me, and this is the final book that I have been so eagerly waiting for. It lived up to all the expectations that I had. The romances in these books are just so gorgeous. The plot is incredible. It really is fantasy at its best, and I don't see nearly enough people talking about this series, which just breaks my heart because it's so good. I know over here in the UK they stopped publishing the series after the second book, which that's a rant for another day because I'm still pissed off about that. So for the 3rd and 4th book I had to ship them in from America, but yeah, I'm still angry that the publisher dropped them because, but just, these books need to be on shelves. So yeah, this was number 2 because it had to be. It was the perfect ending to a perfect series, and I'm still not over it. So my number 1, my favourite book of the year, I wonder what it could be. Absolutely no one could have guessed that it would have been The Sunshine Court. If you'd have told me last year that this book would have been in existence, I'd have laughed in your face and called you delusional, because genuinely there was no way in a million years that I thought that Nora would go back to this story. And as we know, All for the Game is my favourite series of all time. It's consumed me. It has my heart and I will never get it back. I have a shrine dedicated to this series. I have the very expensive Rainbow Crate editions of the books that I cried when I opened because it just means so much to me. So finding out last November that this was going to be a thing, I still can't believe that it's real and that it's in my hand. So yeah, there is no way that any other book could have competed with this. From the moment I read it, I knew it was going to be my favourite book of the year, no matter how amazing those books were, and they were truly amazing. It's just not The Sunshine Court. This truly was everything that I wanted it to be. It went above and beyond my expectations for it, and my expectations were high. So yeah, I can't wait for the next 2 books. I knew it was going to happen. Originally she said it was just going to be 2 books. A duology, done and dusted. I was happy with that because I hate waiting. I just want to know now. But in the back of my mind, I knew that it was going to end up turning into a trilogy. So when Nora came online to announce that it was a trilogy, I was not surprised in the slightest. I was agonised because I need Jeremy and Jean to get their happy ending. But part of me had already accepted that it was going to be 3 books. And you know, that means more content. So I'm not going to complain. So yeah, I think anybody who even knows me in the slightest knew going into this what my favourite book was going to be. But I hope the others were a nice surprise for you. I do have some honourable mentions. They didn't quite make the top 5, but I absolutely adored them anyway. So the first one is Loverbirds by Leanne Egan. This is a sapphic story that's set in Liverpool. I knew I was going to love it when I first picked it up because it's Liverpool. I am always asking for books that are set in Liverpool, or just the north in general, because they all seem to be down south. So yeah, reading this really was like reading a love letter to Liverpool. There were passages in here that had me crying. I'm so thankful that this book exists. So yeah, if you're sick of reading books that are set down south, come read some Scouse Girls. And then the next one is Peter Darling by Austen Chant. I have been determined to read this book for years now, and 2024 was the year that I finally did it. I know when I did my video about my TBR trolley, I mentioned that I wanted to read this, but I didn't have a copy. I finally got a copy. I finally read it. It lived up to the hype that I built in my head for it. It was truly incredible. If you don't know what this is, then it's a queer retelling of Peter Pan. Because of course it is. So yeah, I'm glad that I finally got to this. I forgot to bring up one of my 3 copies that I own of it, but also honourable mention is Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare. The only reason it didn't make it to my top 5 is because I adored it, but I'm still not sold on where I think one of the romances is going, because I don't really like those characters together at the moment, but I'm sure that will change. But yeah, other than that, it was genuinely such an amazing book. It wasn't what I expected when I went into it, but I think I ended up loving it more because of that. I think going into a Cassandra Clare novel, I did expect it to be more romance heavy, so I was very happily surprised that it wasn't, because sometimes, especially lately in fantasy books, the romance can just be so overwhelming because everybody wants romantasy now. So yeah, it was nice that the romance took a back seat in this book and it was more about the world building and the politics and just getting to know the characters. I'm so intrigued by all these characters and I can't wait to see what happens to them. So yeah, that is another honourable mention. So yeah, they were my favourite books of 2024, and I'm so excited about 2025 because many of those books have sequels that are coming out. In fact, all of them do, except for A Wild and Ruined Song, because that was the last book. They're probably going to be in next year's favourite books. Alright, so I have to wrap up the yapping now because my throat is sore. I got a horrible, horrible cold just before Christmas. It was so terrible. I took tests and it wasn't COVID and it wasn't the flu. So genuinely, it was just the worst cold I'd ever had in my life. But I am still feeling the effects of it now, so I still have a cough and my throat still hurts if I talk for more than like 5 minutes. Good for me in social situations because I don't like talking in social situations anyway. Bad for me when I'm trying to yap about my favourite books. So please do let me know what your favourite books of the year were, or any of my favourites in your list of favourites, or did you hate some of my favourites? Good or bad, let me know down in the comments. And what books are you looking forward to in 2025? I am so ready for the reading year ahead. But anyway, no matter what this year has held for you, I hope that you have an amazing 2025. At the end of the day, all that matters is that you get through it. Give yourself a pat on the back for getting through another year in this godforsaken world. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye!